Hey everybody, this is Zach Ditmars, Fish Talk Art Director and Production Manager. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of Live with Lenny. We're now doing the first Thursday of the month. So tonight's topic is winter blue cats. You want to catch a mammoth fish in the middle of the winter? Blue catfish provide a shot at 40, 50, even 80-pound fish all year long. Let's take a look at a few prime hotspots and the simple gear and tactics that we're going to use to catch them. Without further ado, I'll bring on our angler-in-chief, Lenny Rudo.
Hey, what's happening, Zach?
You know, wishing I was fishing.
I hear that. Me too.
So we had a pretty good day hitting the Severn River the other day. We all caught a few nice pickerel in the 20-inch range. So it was a little chilly, but it was a fun day. 2 days after Christmas, I think it was.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure I caught the most fish, right?
The biggest, I think. Actually, you did have a monster that sort of followed you to the boat, swirled around, came back, but we were hitting on everything. Minnows,
there were 3 people on the boat, and I'm pretty sure I caught like 10% of the fish. It was not my finest moment.
No, we just had to get dialed in. But they were hitting everything from the white paddle tails to the,
I think Eric had the high stick with a jerkbait, wasn't it?
Yeah,
a jerk
I think it was like a little 4-inch Rapala sort of shallow diver, and it was white and green. And I was trying one, but it wasn't working too hot. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. We're all, we'll be talking about pickerel some more, I think. But
we will down the road. Today's catfish. And, this is an awesome fishery. A, because it really isn't incredibly complex or difficult. And B, because you can catch fish bigger than a trophy rockfish. I mean, come on. We have been getting picture after picture after picture this fall and into the winter, right up until this past week, of just these monstrous, ginormous fish. Now, we want to remind everybody, as usual, feel free to ask questions, pop them right into the comments as we go along. And there will be a lucky winner tonight, somebody who asks a question. The names will go into a hat, so to speak, virtual hat, and Zach will pick a winner. And today's prize is Hook, Line, and Slinker by Wayne Young. You have to forgive me. My right arm is out of action. I blew up my rotator cuff, so I'm working only with my left hand here. It's a little weird. But this book will be given away to some lucky winner who asks a question. And in the January edition of Fish Talk, here we go, kind of. You may have noticed the article Mid-Base Scuttlebutt by author Wayne Young. This is right out of that book. So if you saw that article and you appreciated the intel that was in it, then you're going to want this. So, Zach, why don't you pile us right into some of these pictures? Because these are impressive. Let's start popping these up. Number one just blows my mind. It really does. Look at that fish. So this fish, this is I got to get my glasses here to read. Mike, Lou, and Jeff went fishing in the Potomac and picked up this 79.9-pound catfish.
Wow.
No wonder 2 of them are holding it up together. I mean, come on. That is one ginormous fish. And, catfish might not be like what you call a glamour species, but I'd ask anybody, when's the last time you caught a 79.9-pound fish in a Chesapeake tributary? That's one impressive fish. That's something else. And it's not even the biggest they've ever gotten. Mike mentioned to me they've caught them over 80 pounds. All right, so go ahead and take us to the next pick if you would, Zach. So this is, that's the same pick. There we go. So this right here is Colton and Bryson. This is a 48-pounder that they caught on the James. Of course, the James also produces those 80-pound plus fish. It's actually even better known than the Potomac for the true monsters. And this is a reader photo. They came in a couple weeks ago. Pictures like this have been coming in left and right. It is just downright amazing. All right, go ahead and slide me on to pick number 3 if you would, because this one really illustrates something crazy. This is a picture of Dave, friend of mine. You can see hanging out of that catfish's mouth. He was not fishing bait. This was taken last spring during trophy season. He was trolling in the Middle Bay for trophies, and this big old catfish slammed into one of his lures. I think we got maybe 3 or 4 reader photos last year of guys who were trolling for rockfish and caught a catfish. And this really speaks to how numerous this species has become in the Bay watershed. And, when the salinity is down, you'll get them all the way out in the middle of the Bay. All fall, people have been catching tons of them by Pools Island from there on up throughout the Bay. But, even down the Bay, you'll get them like this. And I got one on a jig fishing out of Point Lookout, not last December, but the December before, just jigging a jig on bottom for rockfish. And I caught a catfish. So, go figure. But, this brings us to another point about these fish. And I said earlier, it's not complex. It's not incredibly complex, but, many forms of fishing aren't. When you really master the finer details, that's when you kind of take it from catching some to catching a lot and maybe catching that absolute utter monster. And I want to make clear, I am not a blue cat expert. I cannot claim to be. I have not done it a big ginormous amount. Certainly done it plenty of times with success, but I'm not a real Sharpie on it. So I've leaned on some people who know more than I do, A, to talk about a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight, and B, we have a Sharpie waiting in the wings. He should be on there, so when we start answering questions, if I get stumped, he's going to be my lifeline.
Hey, Lenny, we got a comment pertaining to that slide real quick.
Ooh, what's that?
Just thought I'd throw that up. So Robert Robinson said they've been catching them trolling for rockfish around Sheridan Point in the Patuxent.
How crazy is that? I mean, like, there are that many out there, and that's specifically one thing I wanted to bring out. There are hordes and hordes of these fish, but no fishing is 100%. There are no guarantees, and I don't want anybody to go out and go fishing for these fish and not catch and be upset. And the reason I say that is because there's one little thing that can knock your day off kilter, and that's fronts. There are days when big pressure fronts push through, when these catfish will get finicky. The blues in particular get finicky on the fronts. And some years ago, and some of these later slides are going to be from that day. Some years ago, I was invited to fish with a guide on the Rappahannock. And this guy totally knew what he was doing. I mean, he had it down pat. He knew the ins and outs. He did a phenomenal job. And we had a tough day of fishing. I think we caught like 4 or 5 fish. That was it. Because a big front had just come through. And when we arrived, the first thing he said was, "Look, guys, this front literally just moved through. It's going to knock the bite off a little bit." So obviously, it's good to time your days if you can, to not follow a big giant front pushing through. But, most of us go fishing when we can. We don't do it, purely because of the weather conditions. We got work to deal with. We got family, whatever. And so sometimes, you just kind of can't help it. But don't be discouraged if you have one of those days. Now, Zach, I want you to take us to the next slide. But before you do that, I just realized a technological glitch I want to address, because I have this super cool new gigantic fish talk lure right behind. There we go. I just had to adjust the camera to get the gigantic fish talk lure that Ian Rubin made and get it in the frame. A little upsetting that I glanced there and I didn't see it.
A lot of us are very jealous about that. Now, can you troll that for giant winter big blue cats? Is that?
Well, who's going to stop me, right? I might just do it.
I'd recommend, as a conservationist, to swap out those trebles for some single VMC hooks.
Okay, I will take that to heart. I might need to get like some, I don't know, what 10-aughts will be like mini on that thing. What, 20-aughts? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Not that, I don't know. Then there's the whole conversation about invasive species and what do you actually do with those blue cats, which I will have some questions for you later.
The smaller ones are great to eat. There's nothing wrong with eating these fish. Here comes Ian. That might work. the smaller ones in like the 2 to 15 pound size range are just fine. When you get over, I think it's 36 inches, but I might be wrong. The PRFC does have an advisory on the larger fish in the Potomac. And they don't want you, the larger fish, true with all species, it concentrates contaminants in their meat. And the really big ones you don't want to eat. But those smaller ones, absolutely take them home and eat them. Beyond that, from a conservation standpoint, all right, this cat's out of the bag. If every fisherman killed twice as many fish as they caught, I don't think it would have a bit of impact on their populations. And they're spreading big time up north. The Susquehanna, lower Susquehanna, down through the way north zone of the bay is really they're exploding up there now in a way that is just crazy in sizes too.
Yep. So we had another just a comment from Toby Fry. So they've been catching them in the chop tank from the mouth at the bay all the way to the chop tank light tackle, just casting shads for the last 3 years at least. So that's interesting.
Yeah, man. When the salinity goes down, they spread. And that's, I guess, how they've gotten everywhere. They are in all the tribs at this point. I'm not sure that there's any that anybody can point to that don't have them, at this point in time. Why don't you go and take us to the next slide, Zach, and let's get a little bit into tackle and tactics. So this is from that guided trip I was telling you all about before. And go ahead and make that big. Can we make that big, Zach? So there are a couple things here. The first thing that I want to point out is you can see on the rod the fish finder rig. That's a favored rig for them. You go with the fish finder, heavy weight, sink it down on bottom, and let the fish eat, right? Circle hooks are a good move, but even still, you don't want immediate pressure. You want to give those catfish some time to eat that bait. And then let them, when they start swimming away with it, that's when you might want to think about closing up the reel and reeling tight. Now, the other important thing you can see here, you see chunks of fish. And truth be told, these catfish will eat just about anything at different times. But fresh cut gizzard shad is the definite favored bait in the Virginia tribs. You get down to the James and the Rap, that's what guys are using. Now in Virginia, there are some different legalities regarding netting the gizzard shad. In Maryland, you really can't. In the Potomac, I'm not real sure about the gill net regulations, but I don't believe you can catch them yourself nearly as easily as you can in Virginia. So a lot of guys use cut bunker, which is absolutely fine. It works great. This might be if a cut bunker is a 9 out of 10, the fresh gizzard shad might be like a 9.5 out of 10. And if you can get the bunker fresh, then I think you're on the same level playing field. Now, chicken livers also work really well. And of course, you can walk into any Safeway, Giant, whatever, any grocery store and get a tub of chicken livers. They actually stay on the hook a lot better than you guess once you get that kind of gristly part in the middle through your hook. And when we did our Potomac River trip for Fish for a Cure and we targeted these catfish, we had bunker, we had gizzard shad, and we had bloodworms. And truth be told, I couldn't tell the difference. It seemed like whatever it was, they just ate it up. What do you think, Zach? Is that true on that trip?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we had minnows, bloodworms. We had some scallops too. I think, right? Or lobster.
I'm not sure they were going on the hook.
But I think the cut fresh bait was definitely the king that day. But you're right; they were eating everything.
Yeah. They, when they're chowing, they're chowing. So, but that if you can get the fresh cut gizzard shad, the Sharpies will tell you often that's really the way to go. All right, so take us on to the next slide, if you would, please. And here we're going to get a better look at the setup. We got a more of a wide angle view of what's going on this guided boat.
Sure. I got a bunch of comments regarding bait. So before we move, you want to just address?
Oh, sure, man. Start throwing them up. Yeah.
Let's see. Let's start from the earliest one. So Adam said he uses relatively large baits, 2 inches wide and 6-inch long chunks of gizzard shad, but still seems to catch 18 to 20-inch blue cats. What's the best way to keep the smaller fish off the hook when targeting fish over 40 inches or 40 pounds?
Okay, so I got something for you on this, surprisingly. Not something that I learned myself. This is something I was told, not learned myself. But I have been told the best way to actually focus on the really, really big ones is to catch a live bluegill and put a live bluegill down there. And you get a big bluegill, those small fish have trouble, catching it and choking it down, but the big ones grab it. Now, that's what I've been told. I'm going to call on Gary already. Gary, if you got any extra information on this, please feel free to put up in comments. Zach will be watching for it. Folks, Gary is a longtime Potomac River cat guy. He knows what he's talking about. He's a guy I've gone to in the past personally to ask for help. In fact, the first time I fished the Potomac, I was taking my kids. It was when they were really little, and I really just didn't know what I was doing. And he's the guy I went to. So if you got any added intel on that, Gary, we're happy to hear it, and we'll be looking for it.
All right. Our buddy Ian said carp is a good bait that's easy to catch and will stay on the hook well.
Interesting. That's a new one to me.
Joey Moore says that eels are great.
Yeah, now eels, guys eeling for rockfish at Pools Island this fall were pounding 20 to 40 pound catfish. A lot of 30 pounders. We got a ton of photos from that. It was in the reports constantly. Guys were putting out live eels, live. They're putting down live eels on the lumps south of Pools, trying to catch rockfish, and they were getting big catfish. So.
Okay, some more on bait. Joey Moore suggested mullet is his go-to in the James River. And, this is interesting. J Rock says a month ago he was catching them on Jello chicken.
What is Jello chicken?
That's what I was thinking. Is it like Jello marinated chicken? Like
maybe I've heard of guys dyeing chicken breast.
Yeah, I mean, because you get the meat, but you attract them with the sweet. Hey, J Rock, let us know what the Jello chicken actually is. We're curious.
Explain, J Rock. Explain.
So Dominic Becker asked do you use a cast net for bait?
Well, now you could. When I was with the guy down in Virginia, and this is why it was such a no-brainer to go with the gizzard shad, you could drop out a little gill net and you just watch the floats. So when the floats started jiggling, you haul it in and pull out your gizzard shad. So I mean, it was kind of a really easy deal. Cast net, much tougher, a lot more work. I see no reason why it shouldn't apply, though. Of course, I'm not sure the maximum size cast net you can use in Virginia. In Maryland, I believe it's 10 foot, which is kind of just barely big enough to get free swimmers like gizzard shad. You can get them. You need one that's heavily weighted, but it is doable. Strawberry Jello what?
We got to try that.
Holy cow! Strawberry Jello garlic chicken. Okay.
All right. A couple guys, Chesapeake Hunter, white perch is a good bait. And Matt Schultz says he uses a cast net to catch white perch.
And actually, I think that goes parallel with the bluegill. Like a white perch is something that they have a tougher time grabbing, but the big ones love a live one.
I was confused. I thought Joey Moore was J Rock, but J Rock is actually someone else. So he says his is marinated boneless chicken, cut chicken breast, and strawberry Jello powder. Wow.
Okay. Oh, thank you, J Rock. Interesting. I'm gonna have to give that one a shot. I've never done that.
You can also add garlic powder.
Evidently, these fish have a taste very similar to a lot of humans. Yes. That's what I'm gathering here.
Gotcha. These guys say they're catching 50 pounders with this method.
Ooh, nice.
Let's see here. We have another question regarding bait. So before we move on, I just want to address Matt's question directly. We pretty much covered it. Lots of options. So he normally uses cut bunker white perch, but didn't have any available over Christmas. So he tried shrimp and caught a 16 pounder. What else can you use? So we kind of addressed that, lots of stuff, but just wanted to follow up with that on Matt. Did we talk about the gizzard shad and Adam says there's tons up below the Conowingo. I've seen tons of gizzard shad up below the Loch Raven Dam as well. Just packed in there.
They're definitely prolific. So while we're talking bait, before we go to the next slide, I'm going to divert the conversation for just a moment. Because you know what I'm wondering, Zach? You know what I'm wondering?
I'm not sure.
I'm wondering. I would like to know what you used for bait when you jug fish from your kayak, and I would like you to pop on and give everybody a quick little recap on this completely different alternate catfishing potential action, because it is very cool. People are going to love this.
All right, sure.
Tell us about it.
All right.
I love new stuff. New and wacky. It's just great.
So a couple years ago, I was I think this is an older one, but I was looking at the Maryland DNR regulations. And if you flip through it, on recreational tidal gear, right under hook and line, there's a whole category for jugs. I had no idea what this was, so I read up on the regs and started doing some research. So from a kayak, I just take some old jugs. I use my windshield wiper jug because it has a really good tight cap on it. You know, the kind that locks in that you have to push and open like a pill bottle. So I just take 20-pound fluoro to a 8/0 circle hook with a big old chunk of cut bunker. And I just take about half a dozen or so, and you can have, I think, 10 per person with 2 hooks per line, and you just go find a nice tidal flow in the Potomac creeks is a good spot, and you just throw them out there. And it's a natural bait presentation, no weight. The weight of the hook keeps it down. And the next thing you know, you got these gallon jugs just like jaws, like flying through the water. I had one even come right at me, hit my kayak right in the beam. The jug went under the boat, popped out the other side, and went about another 100 feet. And I'm just like, me and my buddy are just like cracking up. It was like one of those fishing trips that you just can't forget. It was just hysterical. We were just ear to ear grins, and we pretty much caught all channel cat. That was down in Mallows Bay about 2 or 3 summers ago. Now, it is important to note with the jug fishing, I think probably because of like the migratory rockfish, they don't want you doing that because while there's potentially any rockfish still around. So I think it's July 1st is when through February 28th is the time frame you're allowed to jug fish in the tidal Chesapeake. Tons of fun, and I definitely want to do it again. I've only actually done it a few times, but it's something to try. It's a lot of fun. I think kids would love it too because you just chasing. You got to chase them down. It's a different kind of fishing.
That's super cool. That's totally nifty. Now pop up the next slide, and it's going to illustrate why I love that so much. Because when you're on a boat, as you're about to see here, people, you're putting out lots of lines, right? This is one corner of the boat. You got 3 on that side. You got 3 on the other side. And then you got some amidships. And this is your standard tactic for really banging on these blue cats. You want to create, it's almost like a crappy spider rig, but really all you're doing is you're spreading your baits way out. You're going to take that one on the right, cast it way off to the right. Take that one in the middle, cast it straight back. Take that one on the left, cast it a little to the left. Spread those baits out. Now, with what Zach was talking about with jug fishing, now of course, if you have a kayak, how many lines can you possibly spread out? I mean, you tell me, Zach, how many?
Oh, I'd say 3 max if you're
right. 3 max. But if you're doing the jug thing, you could use 10.
That's right.
How cool is that? So even a kayak guy who might not have the gear for all this or the ability to put out 10 rods can still, put out a lot of lines and bang on these fish. Now, the other thing I wanted to bring out on this photo, excuse me, you can see conventional gear is sort of the gear for choice here. Now, again, there are some really massive fish that, are in these waters. So I believe this was 50-pound test he had. I might be off 10 pounds one way or the other, but it's not light tackle. Pretty heavy stuff there. But with that, with a conventional rod with 50-pound gear, you can catch some pretty darn big fish. I mean, you play it right, you can handle just about anything you're going to hook into. Excuse me. You can also see the sinkers he favored are the, I'm not even sure what you call them, shaped like a coin. And they did the job just fine. The one thing I noticed was I've seen other guys use pyramid sinkers for this, particularly when they're in a current, so that they don't roll and they don't just kind of roll along. So when they cast these lines spread out apart, they actually stay spread out apart. That's great. You do have to realize if you're using a pyramid weight in the Potomac, the Rap, the James, any of these areas that have a lot of snags, there's a good chance you're going to snag at some point and lose it. Hey, part of the game. All right, I think that takes us on to the next slide. Zach, what do we got up here next? Same day, very, common fish here. I think this one was like 20 pounds. Gosh, that's the guide on the left right there. I can't for the life of me remember what his name was. It was a long time ago. I apologize for that, Mr. Guide, if you ever see this. But he was a great guy, put us on a lot of fish. And one of the things that he stressed to us was when he moved the boat, and we moved a lot. We tried like, I don't know, 8-10 different spots. One of the things he stressed to us was you don't just want to drive your boat out in the middle of the water and park it. You want to be on a hole. You want to be on a channel edge. He really liked structure. He took us to a lot of places where there were trees laying on the bottom. So look for that same kind of stuff. Put your baits out, and that can be the result. All right, go ahead and take us to the next one, Zach.
Sure thing. Real quick question. Nathan Faust asked what depths you will typically find them at.
That's a great question. And the reason I say that is because it's something that stumped me. We were getting a lot of, or multiple reader reports. I want to say it was the September, October timeframe, particularly from up the bay. There was a guy in the Gunpowder, and there was a guy, I want to say in the Northeast, but I might have that wrong. And they were doing it in like 6 feet of water, right, by a flat area where it was 2 or 3 feet of water. And meanwhile, we're always hearing go into the channel, particularly up by the 95 bridge on the Susquehanna is one, channel there, drop it down anywhere in the channel. So I'm not sure that it relates to the specific depth as much as it relates to the fact that you have a deep spot as compared to the surrounding water. That's kind of how that struck me. Again, I'm going to say, Gary, if you got any more insight on this, please add it. I'd love to hear it.
I haven't seen anything from Gary, so.
Oh, shucks. I hope he made it on. He said he would be on. But go ahead and take us to the next one. We'll just keep rolling right along, and someone else might chime in too. So this is on the Potomac. This was the Fish for a Cure day we fished it.
It's a great picture. I think I took that one.
I think you did take that one. That was our big fish of the day. Not incredibly fat, but that sucker was long. Boy, that was a long blue cat. The cool thing here, I don't know how many people will recognize this view of this bridge, but we were literally anchored 100 yards from the Lincoln Memorial. Now, there's just something cool about that. We're right by the Lincoln Memorial. Another trip here, I went another mile upriver, had the same kind of nonstop action day. And another trip on the Potomac, we went about a mile downriver and had the same just epic level nonstop action. On all those trips, that was actually the biggest fish of all those trips. So we didn't get any, 80, 90 pounders, but the number of fish was just totally off the hook, constant nonstop action. So here's the moral of the story. Also, a lot of guys go down to they go down to the Woodrow Wilson Bridge and fish around there. So here's the moral of this story: launch by the airport, by the Reagan Airport, There's a launch ramp right there. Turn left, turn right, go upriver, go downriver, go wherever the heck you want. Go to a channel where the deep water is, drop down near any sort of structure. You're going to have your hands full. And we learned one really neat thing during this day. We were after numbers, not size, this particular day. And I thought this was terrifically interesting. What we found was when we dropped the anchor and put out the baits, we'd immediately start catching. 15, 20 fish later, the bite would slow down. 25 fish later, the bite would really slow down. Well, if you pick up the anchor and move 50, 60 yards, just moved over to the next piling on the bridge or whatever, drop the anchor again, put out the lines again, it just started all over again. So one tip I would give folks who really want to find this nonstop action is, if it slows down after an hour, hour and a half of fishing, just move. And that doesn't mean move to a completely new spot. That means move, to another, to outside of your old casting distance. And I'll bet you get right back into it because the numbers are just magnificent. All right, let's take it to the next one here. This is a funny one. This goes back to what our commenter was saying earlier. This is off the mouth of the Maggie. And I popped this slide in. This is my brother, Steve. I popped this one in here because this was, I think, mid-May. And it was after one of the springs of a lot of rainfall. And what it boils down to is if the salinity is low, and you're north of the Bay Bridge, certainly, but really, even if you're north of Point Lookout, Calvert Cliffs, those zones, you can target these fish in the open bay and have a lot of luck. A lot of luck. This was not the only fish we caught that day, and we had very consistent bites. Caught a lot of them. That was on Fresh Bunker. All right, go ahead and take me to the next one here. What's our next slide?
Real quick, I got a question for you.
Pop it on up.
We got a lot of questions. Thank you guys for chiming in here. So Tim Davies asked if they're in the creeks on the Maggie.
Oh yeah, they're in all the creeks, rivers. My brother lives on the Maggie on one of the creeks. They're there. That I can tell you. I can't tell you that they're up the creeks right now when the water's this cold. If someone else has some insight on that, please chime in. But I personally have never tried to fish up in the creeks for the catfish in the middle of winter. So I don't know.
Ian chimed in and said the deep holes, especially in the Delaware, they will bury themselves in the mud at the bottom of the holes and use it as an ambush spot for bait. So,
okay. Here we go.
So maybe it's worth trying some of the deeper holes in the Maggie.
You know what I want to know, Zach? I want to know why Ian's picture, he's not holding a fish.
I don't know.
I find that a little troublesome, Ian. I mean, maybe that's just me, but
I don't know if this is relevant right now. He says they're really ugly, but can you catch COVID from a big? Get out of here.
Oh, Grant. Yes, and I don't know.
All right, here's another tactical question. Type of tide current do you find they like?
Oh, so the tide part is a little bit of a toughie. Now the current part, they definitely like the current. I don't know if they, let me back up. I don't know if they like the current or if the current helps disperse the scent of your baits, for a longer distance so that they pick it up and come to it. I don't know which it is, but they definitely do want a current. Current is a good thing. Specific tides, I'm at a loss. Everybody feel free to chime in.
I think we've pretty much addressed that. Pretty much these blue cats will eat anything. But spam. I love spam. Why would you waste the spam? Give me the spam.
Oh my goodness.
I do like spam. I'm not joking. So.
Okay. Just for the record, during the height of COVID, we got an email, photo verified from a reader when everybody was locked down and he couldn't really go get any bait. It was during that short period before they declared tackle shops as what they call them, imperative businesses or whatever, and they let them open back up. There was like a week there where all the tackle shops were closed. We got a photo verified email from a reader from a guy who had taken his kids catfishing and he had nothing for bait. So he took some moldy old cheese out of the refrigerator. And lo and behold, they caught like 6 catfish. So, don't be afraid to roll the dice in this case. Spam that's a new one to me though. It kind of makes sense. I'm sure hot dogs are good too. But I know one other thing is good, and that's on our next slide. It's coming right up. Now, this is in it might have been in the Pocomoke. It might have been the Wicomico. I can't tell you, I remember exactly. But if you see the little white bucktail in that fish's mouth, that was tipped with a bull minnow. And yeah, now you can really see it. That was a bull minnow. I was fishing that under a bobber for pickerel, bass, yellow perch. And this big guy came and swallowed it up. And this happens with some regularity. Bull minnow are actually a really good catfish bait. I'm not sure if you wanted to hunt the giants and you had your choice of using anything, I'm not sure it's what you go for. But if you want numbers, you want good eating size fish, that's a really good eater right there. You want you want the eating size fish. There is absolutely nothing wrong with putting a bull minnow on the bottom. And one of the ways I often fish the rivers like the Wicomico, the Nanticoke, the Pocomoke, is I'll figure out where the channel edge is, and then I'll drop my line all the way to the bottom, and then I'll pull it up like 6 inches and set the bobber at that depth. It can get really hard to cast sometimes. You might have to cast like 7 feet of line, 8 feet of line, but it's highly effective. So every time that bobber drifts down the channel and then gets right on the edge, and that bucktail ends up on the bottom. And this is what happens. you get catfish. So don't be afraid to use a bull minnow too. They are definitely a really good catfish bait. All right, we got one more slide coming up. And this one is from the Potomac. This is, I threw this in here to show 2 things. The first was, you can see the circle hook is a good move. I like the 8-aught. You could even go to a 10-aught. There's nothing wrong with that. You really don't want to go much smaller. These fish have big mouths. As usual with a circle hook, let them swim away from you. Let them apply the pressure. And you want to apply the pressure slowly. That's the biggest trick with a circle hook. It's not even that you don't set the hook. It's that the pressure is applied slowly, which of course includes do not set the hook. The other thing that I like about this picture that I wanted to throw in here is this head. I think that was a herring, if I remember right. But the head of a bait fish makes a really good catfish bait. And when you're casting your lines out around your boat, and you're going to cast hard and really spread them out. Or if you're casting from shore and you're throwing like a surf rod and you want to throw it out as far as you possibly can, treasure that head. Because when that hook goes through there, you can really get a solid purchase. That won't fall off when you do a really hard cast. All these other bait fish, especially bunker, when you're doing a really long cast, you're really trying to whip it out there, you can cast the bait off. So, or a fish could hit it and miss it, and you might lose your bait. So that head's a really good chunk for those lines you're going to really whale out there. Woo, man, Zach. I feel like I've been talking too much. Do we have any more questions up there? You've been popping them in pretty regular.
Yeah. We got a whole lot of comments. See a lot of comments, not a whole lot of questions, but again, thanks everyone for chiming in tonight. Let's see here.
I can't wait to go back and read them all, because I can't read them while I'm doing this. I'll confuse myself.
Yes.
And I
Ian,
need my glasses.
Ian said you can use Dove soap because of the animal fat in there. So that's interesting.
That's a weird one. I don't know. Ian. I want photo verified evidence on that one before I'm buying that.
But we got a lot of people confirming that the hot dogs
dogs.
work. A lot of people saying that. Adam uses pickled herring. It's sold in jars from supermarket.
Whoa. Hold on, Adam. That stuff is way too tasty to use for bait. I hope you've taken home some and eaten it. I love that stuff.
I think I paid like a premium for that at Sailor Oyster Bar in Annapolis. You smir it on a little baguette.
I love that stuff, man. I eat that all the time.
However, the Chesapeake hunter says that hot dogs, Spam, and Slim Jims are better for bullheaded small channels, but not for the big blues. So, I actually saw a YouTube video where they went to a bunch of different fast food restaurants, bought chicken nuggets from like Burger King and McDonald's and Chick-fil-A to see which fast food nugget worked best. And they all, I think it was Chick-fil-A, of course. I mean,
naturally.
We ought to try a Royal Farm Sheets Wawa challenge. A Del Mar challenge.
I'm not giving up my Rofo fried chicken. You're not putting it on a hook. It's not going to happen.
Maybe just the bone. Maybe just the bone. We had some questions earlier, and one about tactics. So it's really about the leader. We talked about circle hooks, ADOT. Larry wants to know about leader. What do you suggest?
So, what I was always taught and what has always been fine for me is like 3 pounds and 50-pound mono. I'm not sure it's necessary to use fluoro in this case, although it certainly wouldn't hurt a thing. I think some of the guys targeting the trophies, the trophy hunters, are probably using a heavier leader. I don't really know that for a fact. If anyone is out there right now who targets nothing but the big ones, feel free to chime in. But that 50-pound leader is just fine. I have taken it down to 40 before when going for the high numbers in the Potomac, but there was no real reason for that other than I had a spool of 40 in my bag. If you're not catching the big giants, something that size will be just fine. But beyond that, no real big giant issue with them.
So Tammy says she uses steel leaders.
Wow. Huh. That's interesting. Huh. Well, there's a second not going to get through that. 10-aught, yeah. 10-aught's about right. I think you can reasonably go from like an 8 to a 12, but 10 really does seem to be the sweet spot for these fish.
Our buddy Fish Talk contributor Eric Packer chimed in. He had a couple comments earlier. He said he's caught them on chatterbaits, but I found this to be really interesting that he's caught them on catfish on catfish.
That is interesting. So I think it sounds to me like what this is basically boiling down to is if it's organic in any way, shape, or form, you might catch a catfish on it.
Ian kind of agreed with Tammy there. 50-pound test, but 60 to 80s ideal for the big fish, and the 10-aught's perfect. So. All right, we got a few questions here. Some of them, they're kind of way back at the beginning because I thought that maybe we would sort of come in. It was really about growth and spawning. So, like Tammy's asking, when do they spawn? Someone else kind of like, so like these big catfish. Do we have any idea how old they are?
I honestly, I'm sorry, Tammy, I have to defer on that. I don't know much of the science behind them. I really don't. I apologize. I don't even know where to say to go get it. They have been studied pretty heavily because they've been taken over so much. And I know from talking to some of the guys way up north that like 6-7 years ago, they really didn't see the blues. Maybe 10 years ago, they really didn't see the blues. And then like 5 years ago, they started catching lots of little ones. And year by year, they've literally watched them get bigger and bigger and bigger. And at first it was little guys, and then it was 5-pounders, and then it was 10-pounders, and now it's like 20, 30-pounders. So they definitely grow very quickly. They've got to be prolific spawners. They have got to be. But I'm sorry, I don't know the where and the when.
No problem.
I always like to say, I'm not a scientist and I don't play one on TV. I'm always scared of saying the wrong thing. I hate to say the wrong thing about something like that.
Yeah, let's see if we can maybe we can find some information about that. And actually, I found one that looks relatively safe to sort of looks fairly scientific. What do you say? You want to take a look at it?
Sure.
All right. So
I'm curious. Do you have a graph or a article? I don't know what you found that quickly.
it was an age plot for blue catfish, and it was a Virginia tidal rivers actually compared with. Let's take a look here.
Well, the Virginia tidal rivers kind of. I mean, they're the ground zero for this.
Because we, Steve had asked, about this growth, so I was wondering if we could sort of. So
look at that.
So basically, it's in millimeters. Okay, this isn't.
Oh God, what's a millimeter?
Let's see. So let's say a 10. He's asking about 10 years. Let's see, a 10-year, approximately 400 millimeters. What the heck is a 400 millimeter?
Millimeters to inches. All right. So I want to know what these big guys are. There's one up near 1400.
Yeah, so that's gonna show. Yeah, they're pretty old. I mean,
the 13. That's a 53-inch fish.
Yeah.
At 20 years old. That's a big fish. That's a really big fish.
Did you use Common Core to do
that? No, I used my good friend Google.
All right. So Vincent Higgins is getting ready to move to Delaware, and he'll be fishing the Chesapeake and Delaware Bay. Is there you think it's too salty up there, or?
Well, no, that's a terrifically interesting question because I have heard nothing about the blue cats in the Delaware Bay. I don't know that they are or are not there, but I haven't heard a peep about it. Now, that said, the Delaware and the Chesapeake are connected by the C&D Canal. The canal does come out, well, not terribly far down. I mean, they got to be in there. I can't imagine they're not. But maybe they are. I don't know. But you know who does know? I'll bet my good friend Google has something to say about this. But I really don't know. It certainly is not, they certainly aren't as prolific as in the Chesapeake, or we would have heard about it. DNREC, Delaware National Division of Fish and Wildlife. Yeah, they've got them. What's interesting is their state record actually comes out of the Nanticoke, which is flowing the other way. That's coming down, into the bay, 36-pounder. So that, what that tells me is, if you want to target these fish, head for the Chesapeake, not the Delaware Bay, because if their biggest fish is 36 pounds and it's coming out of the Nanticoke, you're not likely to find, the same kind of action up there as you are down south.
Do you have an example of a rig, like do you have any kind of fish finder rig laying back there? Or
I don't think I do, and often I try to before these. I'm afraid I'm falling back on my cripple excuse. I do not have the use of my right arm.
Well, I can bring that. If I bring that slide back up, you can kind of.
Oh, there we go. Yes. Can you zoom on that, Zach? Is that even possible?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Nope, sorry.
Well, you can see it's very straightforward. You can see the circle hook at the bottom, leader, swivel, fish finder rig, drop it down with a weight, main line. It's that simple. And that after doing that with that gent, I never changed that a bit, really, on my side. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Right.
sorry, I can't hold anything up right now, Dominic.
All right, so Jane's husband fishes around the chop tank, but she's suffering from a catfish shortage in her freezer. He's just not getting the fish. Any suggestions? What do you think?
I think he needs to go fishing more. Maybe you need to go fishing with him more.
Mm-hmm. What do you think? Maybe upriver, but maybe
Yeah. So the catches that come in the saltier areas, they're sporadic depending on the salinity levels. They go up, they go down. And B, the concentrations aren't as high. The biggest concentrations of these fish are definitely up the rivers. They're up. So the chop tank, if you get north of Route 50, you're in kind of decent catfish territory, pretty much all the time. But if you get up towards Denton, you're probably going to find much better concentrations of fish. When you go that far up. I've caught a bunch of them in the chop tank right near Denton, where Watts Creek hits the river. At least in past years, there have been gobs of them there, including at this time of year, because that area, historically, I used to fish that a fairly decent amount in the wintertime. So, Jane, pack them up and take them that away.
So our good buddy Wayne chimed in and let us know that he kept running into catfish reports for the Delaware while research on his lower Delaware River and Delaware Bay book, but the reports were on the smaller size. So yes, they are there, just on the smaller size.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in 10 years, right? Could be just like up by the Susquehanna. They might just get bigger, bigger, bigger.
Toby Fry said north of the Dover Bridge. Do you know what he's referring to? Is
that? I think at that point it might be the Delaware River, right? That's going up the Delaware.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that. Might be, might not be at that point.
All right. So also regarding that topic, Chesapeake Hunter says, see for Delaware and the Nanticoke and Sharpstown, Maryland is also a decent spot coming from Salisbury.
There's the Nanticoke again. So that's pretty good indication right there too.
When we were talking about baits and different, offerings, a couple of people asked questions about actually just chumming for them, just like as you were for rockfish.
So that's an interesting question. I do know some folks chum for them. I haven't heard of it with menhaden. I think they commonly do it with, they'll take a can of dog food and poke holes in it and put it down. And I believe some other guys, shoreline guys, will fling it out and do that periodically throughout the course of the day to try and attract them. So chum can work to attract them. I see no reason why menhaden wouldn't work. I mean, just about everything that eats fish is attracted to bunker. I would think that would work just fine.
Nice.
Yeah.
A lot of guys said Denton is pretty good. Northeast Elk River. So these things are pretty much everywhere. And now they were introduced, right, in the 70s.
Oh yeah, the James, I think, was the origination of them. They were put in the James to grow big giant fish, and I don't think anybody ever really expected at the very beginning that the blues would sort of escape the James and go all throughout the bay. But, you get some years where you get really strong freshwater flows and they can handle some salinity. And so the next thing you know, they're everywhere.
Yeah. Well, tons of engagement from this great audience this evening. I want to thank everyone for tuning in there.
We got to pick a winner, man.
We do. First, I wanted to, just remind everybody the website and tons of content. You can find a lot of these questions in it. If we didn't answer all these specific questions, a lot of people sort of answered
Oh, yeah,
as well.
Yeah, we forgot to mention that. If you go to fishtalkmag.com, the search box is in the upper right-hand corner. Just plug in catfish.
For blue
yeah,
cat, and you get,
And those are really good articles. We've had multiple Sharpies chime in on this. We've got lots of good stuff there. So that's definitely something you want to check out.
All right. Now the moment everyone's been waiting for. Thank you, Wayne, for tuning in, and thank you for your contribution of hook, line, and slinker. Got a ton of names on here, so.
I love the wheel. You got a hold of Sikorsky's wheel. How'd you do that?
I stole it from Sikorsky. All right, here we go for the Wayne Young book, hook, line, and slinker. Robert Robinson. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Robert, shoot us a message on Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, you can email Lenny at fishtalkmag.com, and we'll get that book right out to you. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. Lenny, what are we looking at? February 3rd for our next program?
That sounds about right. First Thursday of the month, we're going to do it. And I don't know what the topic is yet. We're going to see what kind of cool fishing is going on and make it appropriate to it. Hopefully, we won't be looking out the window at all this white garbage. It'll be warm, and we'll be ready to fish. Until then, this is a good one, though. Try this. You can't not love catching these big old catfish.
You're not just trying to distract everyone from targeting pickerel, because that's what me and you are duking it out, trying to catch the biggest pickerel, right? You just saying, hey, don't catch pickerel. Go fish the big cats.
Man, I'm down for the count right now. I don't know what to do. I can't fish.
Hope to see you out there soon.
Hopefully this won't last long. We'll see.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Zach.